The day I brought homemade lasagna to my husband's office was the day my entire marriage unraveled in a lobby full of strangers. I remember I'd packed it in the good container, the ceramic one with the lid that actually seals. My daughter Fiona had helped me wrap it in a dish towel to keep it warm. She was 4, and she kept asking if Daddy would share with her when we got there, because she wanted some too. I told her we'd get dinner together after just the 3 of us. Maybe that Italian place on Clement Street he always said we should try. I was in a good mood. That's the part that still gets me. I was in such a good mood. My husband Colt had been working late for 3 weeks straight. He was a senior project director at Vantage Development Group, one of those mid-size commercial real estate firms that always had some crisis happening somewhere. I understood that. I was patient. I'd been patient for 6 years. But that morning he'd forgotten our anniversary, not even a text. And instead of being angry, I thought, I'll surprise him. I'll bring lunch. I'll be the wife who shows up. The receptionist at the front desk, a young woman I'd seen twice before, smiled when I walked in with Fiona on my hip and the ceramic dish under my arm. She recognized me. I know she did. There was a flicker of something on her face. Not warmth, something else. Before she picked up the phone and turned slightly away from me. "I'll let him know his wife is here," she said quietly. She listened for a moment. Then she set the phone down and looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Aldridge. He's in a private meeting with a client right now, an important one. He said he can't be interrupted." I shifted Fiona to my other hip. "It's our anniversary. I just want to drop off lunch." "He was very clear," she said. "He said not to let anyone up. Anyone. Not anyone else. Just anyone." I stood there for a second, processing that, and then I looked past the front desk, toward the glass elevator on the far wall, and I saw them, just for a moment before the doors slid shut, Colt, in his gray suit, and a woman with dark hair, laughing at something he said, her hand on his arm, his head tilted toward her like he was sharing a secret. The elevator closed. I set the ceramic dish on the reception desk very gently and said, "Tell him I came by." Then I walked back to the parking her car seat and sat in the driver's seat, for I don't know how long. Fiona fell asleep. The lasagna was still warm. I could feel the heat coming off it. I didn't cry. I want to say I did, that I had some kind of movie moment, but what I actually did was pick up my phone and call my brother. Not my older brother August. He would have driven straight to the office and caused a scene. I called my younger brother Felix, who is the calm one, the one who thinks before he speaks, the one who went to law school and then pivot into finance and now runs the investment arm of our family's property management company. "Hey," I said when he picked up. "I need you to pull everything." A pause. He knew my voice. "How much of everything?" he asked. "All of it," I said. "Every contract, every financing arrangement, every line of credit we extended to Vantage. I need it frozen by end of business today." Another pause, then, "Done. Are you okay?" "Not yet," I said. "But I will be." I should explain something about my family because it matters. My father, Warren Hale, built Hale Property Group from a single apartment complex in Sacramento into one of the largest privately held real estate holding companies in Northern California. He's 71 now and semi-retired, but he still comes into the office 3 days a week, and everyone there knows it. My mother passed when I was 19, and after that my father raised me and my 2 brothers the way he built his business, with patience, with precision, and with a very clear understanding that loyalty is the only currency that matters. I am the middle child. August is 4 years older than me and runs operations. Felix is 3 years younger and handles capital. I am the one who went into architecture and urban planning, which my father always called the heart of what we do. When I married Colt 6 years ago, my father welcomed him. When Colt's firm needed bridge financing on a major project 2 years in, my father said yes. When Vantage needed a long-term equity partner on their Marin County development, Felix said yes. When they needed a referral to the city planning board, my former colleagues, I made the calls. The Hale family had put roughly $42 million of support into Vantage Development Group over 4 years in various forms. Colt knew this. His partners knew this. His CEO, a man named Burchard who wore cufflinks to casual Fridays, definitely knew this. What none of them counted on was that I knew exactly how to take it back. I didn't go home that night. I took Fiona to my father's house in Tiburon, the big one on the water, and I put her to bed in the guest room where she always slept when we visited. The one with the glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling that my father had put there himself when she was born. Then I went downstairs and told my father everything. He listened without interrupting. That's one of his great qualities. He sat in his chair by the window with the bay spread out behind him going dark and silver, and he listened until I was finished. "How long?" he asked. "I don't know." "Long enough that the receptionist felt sorry for me." He nodded, slowly. "What do you need from me?" I need a few days, I said. I don't want to do anything yet that I can't undo. But I need to know that when I'm ready, you'll back me. Sweetheart, he said. I have always backed you. I spent 2 days at my father's house. I did not answer Colt's calls, which started about 4 hours after I'd left the office and escalated through the evening from texts asking if I was okay to voicemails that shifted between worried and defensive. On the third voicemail, he said he could explain. On the fifth, he said I was overreacting. On the seventh, sent at midnight, he said that the woman I'd seen, her name was Sinclair. She was a consulting partner the firm had brought in from Chicago, and there was nothing going on, and if I would just come home, we could talk like adults. I saved all of them. Felix had already sent me a contact for a family law attorney named Prescott and Webb, one of the best firms in the Bay Area. I made an appointment for Friday. In the meantime, I did research. It wasn't hard. When you've spent 6 years embedded in someone's professional world, you know where to look. I knew Colt's email password. Not because I'd ever gone looking, but because he'd asked me to check something for him once 2 years ago and I'd never forgotten it. I knew the name of his assistant, the schedule his firm kept, the project names for every active deal. What I found confirmed what I already felt in my chest, sitting in that parking garage. Sinclair had been brought on as a consulting partner 8 months ago. Her travel records, visible on the shared work calendar Colt had added me to years ago and apparently forgotten about, showed she had been in San Francisco far more often than any consulting arrangement required. There were hotel charges from Union Square on nights Colt had told me he was working late, a dinner reservation at Accarello, the kind of restaurant where you propose or you celebrate something, made under his name for two. I printed everything at my father's house at 11 o'clock at night, while Fiona slept upstairs. On Friday morning, before my appointment with the attorneys, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but the area code was local. I answered. Mrs. Aldridge? This is Burchard, Jeffrey Burchard, from Vantage. His voice was professionally warm, the kind of warm that means I need something from you. I'm aware of who you are, Jeffrey, I said. I wanted to reach out personally, he said, because we received some communication from Hale Capital this week about a potential restructuring of our partnership agreement, and I wanted to make sure there hadn't been some kind of misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, I said. A pause. I see. Another pause. Is there something Vantage can do to address any concerns you might have? I thought about the ceramic dish I'd left on the reception desk. I wondered if anyone had eaten the lasagna. Jeffrey, I said, my family has been a financial partner to your firm for 4 years. In that time, we've extended $42 million in financing, equity, and professional goodwill. I would encourage you to consider what it means to be on the other side of that relationship. Have a good morning. I hung up before he could respond. My attorney, a sharp woman named Prescott, the senior partner, not the junior, went through everything I'd brought with the focused efficiency of someone who had seen this exact situation many times and found it neither surprising nor particularly complicated. California is a community property state, she said. Given the length of your marriage and the involvement of your family's capital in his professional ventures, you're in a strong position. The documentation you've gathered is helpful. I want full custody of my daughter, I said. That's the first priority. Given his schedule and what you've described here, I don't anticipate that being a problem, she said. We'll file for primary physical custody with reasonable visitation. He won't fight hard on that. Men in his position rarely do when they know the other facts are going to come out anyway. I thought about Fiona asking if Daddy would share the lasagna. Good, I said. Colt found out about the legal filing before I had a chance to tell him myself. His attorney apparently called him the same afternoon Prescott filed, and that was the end of the voicemails trying to explain. What replaced them was a very different kind of call, tense, controlled. The voice he used when he was embarrassed and trying not to show it. You involved your family, he said. My family was already involved, I said. You involved them when you took their money. That is completely separate. It isn't, I said. You made it one thing when you married me and another thing when you made different choices. You don't get to keep both. He was quiet for a moment. Sinclair and I. It wasn't planned. I didn't call to hear about Sinclair, I said. I called to tell you that Fiona is with me, she is safe and happy, and my attorney will be in contact with yours. That's all I have to say. I hung up. My hands were steady. I was a little surprised by that. What happened next happened fast, the way things do when money is involved. Felix, true to his word, had frozen Hale Capital's involvement with Vantage by end of business the day I called him from the parking garage. What that meant in practical terms was that Vantage's Marin County project, a 40-unit mixed-use development that was already under construction, suddenly had a significant financing gap. Burchard had apparently been counting on the next tranche of Hale funding to cover Q3 construction draws. And without it, they were short. Contractors started asking questions. The general contractor on the Marin project was a firm that had worked with Hale for 15 years. And when August made a quiet call explaining the situation, they slowed their work pending payment resolution. I didn't orchestrate all of this. I want to be clear about that. I made one phone call to Felix. My family did the rest, because that is what my family does. We moved together. Colt had spent 6 years benefiting from that. It turned out to be uncomfortable to be on the other side of it. There was a moment, I heard about it secondhand from Felix, who heard it from someone at the firm. When Colt walked into Burchard's office and Burchard told him, very directly, that the situation with his personal life had created a business problem that Colt needed to fix. I don't know exactly what was said. I know that Colt's equity stake in Vantage was reduced as part of an internal restructuring that happened about 6 weeks after I filed. I know he's still employed there. I know things are different for him now in ways that I imagine he thinks about. I try not to think about it too much. It's not something I feel triumphant about. I feel tired about it, mostly. 6 years is a long time to be wrong about someone. August threw a dinner at his house in Mill Valley on the night the divorce was finalized. Nothing big, just family. My father, August, and his wife, Felix, and his girlfriend, me and Fiona. August grilled salmon because he always grills salmon when he wants to mark an occasion. And Fiona sat at the table eating her way through an entire bowl of garlic bread, while the adults talked around her. At some point, my father put his hand over mine on the table and said, without any particular ceremony, "You handled this well." That was enough. That was the whole thing for me. Fiona looked up from her garlic bread and said, "Grandpa, can we go see the stars after dinner?" My father's house in Tiburon has a little deck off the back that looks out over the water, and on clear nights you can see a lot of sky. He'd been taking her out there since she was a baby. "We absolutely can," he said, and he smiled at her in that way he has. Like she is the most remarkable thing he has ever seen. And I felt something in my chest that had been pulled very tight for a long time start to loosen. My attorney finalized the parenting plan 4 months after the initial filing. I have primary physical custody. Colt has Fiona every other weekend and 1 evening per week. She adjusts to it the way kids do, with a flexibility that sometimes breaks my heart and sometimes amazes me. She is 5 now. She draws pictures at my father's house and sticks them to the refrigerator. She has started calling August's dog my dog, even though it isn't. I went back to work full-time. I'd been consulting part-time since Fiona was born, and I'd told myself it was a temporary arrangement, that I'd ramp back up when the timing was right. I understand now that I was waiting for permissions I didn't need. I took a project with a firm in the city, a mixed-use development in Hayes Valley that I care about, and I go in 3 days a week and work from home the other 2, and it is, most days, exactly what I wanted. There are still hard days. I won't pretend otherwise. Some mornings I drive Fiona to preschool, and the whole 6 years, sits right at the surface, and I have to breathe through it. Some evenings when Fiona is at her father's and the apartment is quiet, I have a glass of wine and look at pictures on my phone for too long, and feel sorry for myself in a way I don't allow during the day. But here is what I keep coming back to. I walked into that lobby carrying a ceramic dish of homemade lasagna, and I thought I was being the good wife, the patient one, the one who shows up. And I was right about one thing, I do show up. That part was always true. I just finally showed up for myself. The dish, by the way. I went back for it a week later. I called ahead and asked the receptionist if it had been thrown away. She said no, someone had put it in the break room refrigerator. She sounded almost guilty when she said it. I told her not to worry about it. I picked it up on a Tuesday morning, washed it when I got home, and put it back in the cabinet. Some things you just don't throw away.